Good evening, folks. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope everything is working correctly here. I haven't streamed in 2 months, and that is just shameful. So I'm sorry. I hang my head in shame for neglecting you folks of my supposedly weekly streams. Man, it's been a busy 2 months here. I had a lot to do. I was out of town for several weeks. Various stuff in the family's going on and all that, and also been busy over on the line, but nice to have everybody here. Let's see who we got in the audience. We already got a couple of people in the back room, which I'll bring forward here in a moment. But yeah, DM Turner, earlier tonight, you jumped in chat, you just twisted my arm. You said, Eric, you need to stream. And I said, yeah, DM, you're right. So yeah, this is actually for you, DM. You're the one who talked me into it. So thank you so much. I got a fresh beer. At the end of that last stream, I was on for 4 hours with Matt. And man, my bladder was like critical mass at the end of that stream. If anybody's paying attention, I was really fidgeting in my seat because like I needed to go. So anyway, yeah, we survived. Everything's fine. My bladder's intact. It was a close call, but so anyway, yeah, refreshed my drink. Checked out my dogs. I ran them around the backyard for a little bit. I came out of my room. My dogs were like, "Oh my God, it's you! Welcome back!" And so I ran them around and made sure everything was good. Yeah. So thanks, DM. Appreciate it. Calicia, thank you so much for becoming a member. I set up the memberships at 99 cents and only 99 cents. And I think we have one emoji in there right now. But tell you what, at the end of this stream, we'll have a poll. Maybe we'll get some suggestions in chat about what the next emoji should be, or maybe the next 2 or 3 emojis. And I'm not sure how many I'm currently allowed. So yeah, we'll maybe have a little vote and see which ones should make it on the next, for the next emoji. Neely, welcome. Appreciate it. Eric Wander. Hey, I like your name, Eric. Yeah, thank you for becoming a member. Really appreciate it. Alma, so good to see you. Fellow XJW, not an XQ like I goofed up with on that last stream. Alma is a real XJW. She's just like me. We both come from the same background. Good to have you here. I haven't seen you in a few weeks. I think it's been a little while. And then yeah, so Salty, welcome. I got you in the room with us. We'll bring you here in a second once I say hello to everybody. Hey, I curled Earl. Good to see you. Yeah, it's been a little while. It's been about 2 months, and I'll be talking about some of the stuff I've done over the past couple months. I went to New York, I went to Las Vegas, California, multiple towns in California, Oregon, and finally back up here to Washington. So Casey, welcome. Pepper, welcome. And yeah, no, DM, you're the one that got it in my head. In fact, to be honest, I was thinking earlier tonight about having a follow-up stream because it's a good opportunity. Like I'm on the hang up with Matt. Once the stream closes down, I can announce, hey, I got a stream going. Maybe hopefully glean some viewers off of that stream. But anyway, your comment, and then I mentioned it, and then Matt encouraged me. So yeah, here we are. Hey, BS. Good to see you, man. Antarctic Fox, welcome. Hey, Chrissy. Always good to see you. Welcome. I think that's all we got here so far in the chat. So yeah, feel free to talk it up in the chat. We're going to be just shooting the shit tonight. I have no plan whatsoever, nothing prepared. I opened my meme folder. We're going to probably walk through some memes and maybe spark some discussion. We'll see. Some of the memes might be very on point. Some of the memes might be completely off base. I'm like, holy crap, this is garbage. Might be fun to talk about. Who knows? And if anybody wants to, I remember this time. If anybody wants to tune in and join us, you're more than welcome to. In fact, I will put it in the chat. I think I can do it from here. There, and then how do I pin it? Pin message. Cool. I just pinned the StreamYard link. So yeah, come on in. You can be theist, you can be atheist, you can be whatever. Well, there's only 2 options, theist and atheist. But yeah, hop on in, and we're just having a lighthearted discussion tonight. This is going to be my 5th hour streaming, so I'm not seeking like super competitive, in-depth, contentious discussion, but we'll see where it goes. Okay. And then I think that's all I got right now. So yeah, feel free to pop in. I got Salty Seattle Cyclist in the back. Are you ready to come in on the stage, Salty? I think you are. I'm gonna pop you in here.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, hey Salty, how you doing?
Hey, hello.
Yeah.
Oh my god. You got me just in time. I literally ran over to turn on a light.
Oh yeah.
So
I can see your previews down there. I can see your preview down there before I bring you on the stage. So I saw you had walked
probably
away
saw me
and came back.
running over across
Yeah.
my room.
Yeah. No, it's so good to have you here. DM's also in the back room. I'll bring you here in about 60 seconds, DM. I just want to give Salty a proper welcome, and then I'll give you a proper welcome. So yeah, this is our first time, I think, talking on face to face.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see chatting over the line. And is your name literal? Are you a salty Seattle cyclist? Like you actually in Seattle riding around a bike?
Go to my channel and you'll see for yourself.
Oh, you have a channel. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I'll have to go take a look at that.
Bro, I have a live stream setup here. Like
okay.
It's not what I do on my channel normally, but because I do cycling videos. My helmet has 2 GoPros on it.
Yeah.
That's what my main videos are. But I also enjoy sim racing, so that's why I have a live stream set up.
Oh, awesome. Very cool. Well, that's great. Yeah, it's good to talk to you. If we're both in Seattle, we probably got a lot in common to talk about. I just noticed I'm gonna push pause for a second. StreamYard did not show me the proper notification, but Calicia just bought 10 memberships for folks. So thank you, Cala. Thank you so much. But congratulations to Molly Popper. We have Me and My Drone, Rogston, Jonathan Garcia, Donkey Butt, Bishoy Sami, Tasca, Yippee Skippy, Happy, and John Abate. So, man, Kala, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. I will here in Seattle, I can buy a latte and a half with that kind of cash. So, man, you're really helping me out there. So, thank you so much. My memberships are only 99 cents. I'm keeping them there at 99 cents because that's about how much I value my own content, and I don't want to feel too much pressure to like stream every week because I'll feel guilty if I charge a lot of money, and I usually just direct my money to something other than me, like hopefully like, dropping like a donation or something like that somewhere. So yeah, chances are if you get a membership here, chances are that money is just going to go to a charity or something, because I'm not really here to make any money. I'm just here to have fun, talk about memes and trade emoji. So yeah, Kala, thank you so much. I'm gonna bring DM in here. Hey DM, how you doing?
Hey, what's up, man? Hey. I've spoken to you one time before. And if I could refresh your memory,
Cafe, right?
Yeah. I was telling you I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and I asked you to spell the county name, and it's a Bexar, and I'm like, do you know how that's pronounced? And I don't know if you can recall that.
I recall part of our conversation. I don't recall this bit of it, but
yeah, well, Bexar is pronounced Bear County in San Antonio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to jog your memory, but that was the last time I remember speaking to you, man.
Yeah, I remember you in here. You were in the name Cafe, and I do remember parts of the conversation.
Cool.
I think we had just some general disagreements on a few things, and always like a cordial conversation and everything.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, man. I really liked your approach to everything. Like, I recently had a discussion with Aaron Raw, and he wanted to go over the evidence in science that I guess establishes that consciousness blinks out at the moment of death.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to point out to him, like, hey man, there is no such established evidence. He's like, well, okay, wait a minute, let me bring on neuroscientists. We're gonna get this, we're gonna have this show. I'm gonna bring a neuroscientist on, and then we'll discuss this. And I mean, it ended up being a really interesting conversation. The neuroscientist, I mean, I'm not trying to, start some stuff with materialists, but he couldn't bring up, anything concrete. And he ended up inviting me to his own, YouTube channel. He's like, hey man, I really like what you're saying. Please, you keep in touch. I want to talk to you again.
Cool.
But, yeah.
I think probably, Arn's probably making a statement about consciousness blinking out at death. He's making the statement probably based on the fact that we have no evidence to indicate that consciousnesses continue on after death, because we know that, and I'm not here to debate, I'm just simply probably rephrasing maybe what his intention of it
Sure.
was, but
Yeah.
we all the evidence indicates that our consciousness is a product, an emergent property of our brain, because we can alter that consciousness. We can temporarily suspend it with things like drugs, and permanently suspend it with things like brain damage and like lobotomizing people and such. Everything indicates that who we are, our mind, our consciousness, is the product, the function of our brain. So when that brain stops functioning, it makes sense that that emergent property itself also ceases. Unless somebody can show that there's something other than the brain at play there, which I don't think at any point anyone has done in any way that is reliable. That's probably why he's taking that jump forward and saying, yeah, we just know that consciousness terminates at death.
No, I mean, we definitely got into it, man. You know, it wasn't
Yeah.
like it was overlooked. You know, the common, you know, caveat that a lot of people like to bring up is Phineas Gage, that famous example of, you know, that guy that had that rail pass through his skull.
Yeah.
And, you know, greatly affected his personality, of course. Yeah. And, you know, I guess what I proposed to them was, you know, perspective in that, because that is the consensus amongst, you know, a materialist way of viewing these things, that, you know, if you damage the brain, you therefore have a very altered personality ever afterwards. You know, it greatly affects the way you know, present yourself. So what I was trying to set them was a metaphor out of, you know, I guess people who do adhere to a kind of a spiritualist point of view, like Graham Hancock, for instance. Maybe you've heard of the metaphor that he uses, that you have a factory that produces cars, and the factory, the cars that are being produced are, this is the you know, stream of consciousness that's coming out. So if you destroy the factory in the materialist model, you therefore destroy you know, the stream of consciousness, and so consciousness blinks out. That is the consensus view, you know, amongst people who adhere to, you know, that mind is emergent property of brain, you know. And so I guess the flip side view that I was trying to propose to them was, you know, if you consider a radio model, you know, where the brain is more akin to a radio, and it's perceiving a signal, you would have no distinction between how personalities are being affected, because if you destroy the radio, the signal is still there, but you are destroying the way the radio interprets that signal, and so therefore you have a complete you know, twin a case of, you know, the person's personality being affected in the exact same way. And so, you know, you just come in from different vantage points, and, you know, like so
I can appreciate the illustration, or the illustration there, and it does illustrate that individual's viewpoint pretty accurately, because yeah, if lots of folks think that the brain and the body is just simply channeling a soul as if it's receiving a radio
yeah.
signal, like I appreciate the ability for that illustration to kind of get across the
Yeah,
position.
put it into perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, but it still comes down to the question of evidence. You know, we have lots and lots of evidence that shows that when you damage the brain, modify the brain, remove the brain, even split the brain in half and get two people out of it,
Yeah.
that, okay, in that case, are we now picking up two signals with two different brains? Why can't one brain pick up another brain signal, like take over and things like that?
Yeah, you're talking about V.S. Ramachandran.
Yeah.
A
So
lot of these studies.
it really comes down to the evidence. And it's like we've never had any evidence of some type of stolen transmission onto the brain. I mean, like I said, I appreciate the illustration to illustrate and explain the viewpoint, but it really does just come down to, like, you know, evidence. Like, what does the evidence support? And overwhelmingly, evidence supports, you know, the position
No, I
I
absolutely
said earlier. So anyway, go
completely
ahead.
agree with you. You know, I suppose what I'm getting at is that, you know, when you look into neuroscience, you won't find any definitive evidence I mean, you will find that this is the consensus. This is what people lean towards in the majority case amongst neuroscientists and scientists and so forth. But there is no peer-reviewed paper that pins this down, that this is in fact the case, that what's happening, that which is basically
Well, that's the thing. Like, you don't have to have a paper that says this is indeed the case. It can just be a preponderance of the evidence and an evaluation of the plausibility and probability of it.
No, I agree.
So, yeah.
You know,
so I mean, while we cannot eliminate the possibility, the possibility of the transmission hypothesis being correct, maybe we are all souls being transmitted into different bodies. That could be the case. My confidence in that being the correct conclusion is so low that I virtually ignore it until there's more evidence to come in and support it. Aaron goes a step further and says, no, it is definitely this, and that can be interpreted as 100% confidence in his conclusion, 0% confidence in.
That's the whole reason why he wanted to join up with the neuroscientist. And he's like, he was under the impression that this neuroscientist was gonna just like lay it all out, and little did he know that I guess they thought it was gonna be some kind of pushover theist that was gonna succumb to like this so-called evidence, and he ended up finding it a very interesting conversation. He wanted to continue it, forward. And I'm like, I'm down for that. So it was never, established either way. And he did it live, but it was, I think it was through StreamYard. But the thing is, I asked him, like, where is this being projected? Is it on your channel? He's like, no, I'm not broadcasting it live on any channel right now. I want to, come back, edit it, and then put it forth. So I hope he does that. If not, I'm gonna ask him, like, hey man, if you didn't bring it, at least give it to me. Give me the recording you had, and I'll put it on my channel. I think that would be awesome.
That. Cool. All right. Well, yeah, sounds like you had a hopefully productive conversation there. Thanks for sharing that with us. If he does post it, forward me a link. I'm subscribed to like a billion channels, so sometimes the algorithm doesn't even show me my subscriptions that I have when there's stuff like that. That's interesting. Anyway, welcoming some new folks here. Nitty, hey man, how you doing? Haven't seen you also a couple months. I've been a little absent. Talk a little bit about my trip here in a few minutes. I mentioned it a little bit on the hang up earlier tonight, but yeah, I had my own thing with Delta Airlines a couple weeks ago, and it was kind of a fiasco. I still like them as an airline, but man, it kind of put a nice dent in their shiny armor in my eyes, unfortunately.
So what you're saying is you spent 2 months in a Delta airport?
Yes, that's exactly it. Okay. It was like what was that Tom Hanks movie? Layover?
Yes.
Was that? Yeah. I was just like that. I was sleeping in different places.
I figured.
I literally slept on the JFK airport floor that evening because it's kind of a it's kind of a shit show. But
I've been there. Yeah, not in JFK, but at other airports.
Yeah, and JFK is a huge airport, and getting to the airport's very difficult. It's like it's at the end of the subway line, and then from the subway line you got to transfer to a special air train, and that takes you to JFK. And then literally the terminals are like a quarter mile long, and my one gate was at the very end of one of the terminals. So by the time I got to my gate, it was like I've been traveling for nearly an hour from Manhattan to get to just my gate, and that's just through subway and the train and walking. Anyway, so plane was supposed to take off at 6. Yeah, plane was delayed to 7. We boarded 7. We wait an hour on the tarmac until finally the pilot says, "Sorry, we have a mechanical issue. We're unable to fix it. Need everybody off the plane." So we all get off the plane. We wait an hour. They board us on a second plane. We then wait a whole nother hour just sitting there on the tarmac, and the pilot comes back on the line and says, "Sorry guys, it's taking too long to transfer the cargo and fuel the plane, and the flight crew is now outside of his legal service window. We need to rest to legally operate this plane. So sorry, everybody off." So we all get back off the plane. So deboarded our second plane within like 2 hours. Wait around for about 3 hours. At midnight, they said we couldn't find a new crew. Next flight out's 10:30 in the morning. We'll give you a voucher for hotel stay. And I'm like, I'm neck deep in JFK airport, getting out of here and getting back and I have to find a hotel and then go through the process of like reimbursement. I'm like, I'm done. So I went and got a couple of, Salt in the Wound. The real Salt in the Wound was the only place that was open in the airport terminal was a Buffalo Wild Wings, and I was like, oh,
Oh.
okay, fine. So first world problems, I know, but anyway, so I got some crappy food and some warm beer, and I went and just took a nap on the floor. And I
Yeah,
ended up
that
pushing
sounds
for it.
about right.
It was pretty
Sounds
bad.
about
Yeah.
exactly like Buffalo Wild.
Yeah.
I can think of worse places you would have to be, but
Yeah.
I can
Like,
very much think of better places to be.
yeah. And there's like those jokes going around that, you know, millennials are killing Applebee's, millennials are killing Chili's and Buffalo Wild Wings.
No, they're doing it to themselves.
I walked out of there and I was like, I don't care. Buffalo Wild Wings deserves to die. Like this is a terrible food. I'm so done.
If I may ask, you have a preference? Like, what is your? I mean, unless you don't even like wings, like.
I love wings. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your preference? Like over that?
So
this is okay. I have to interrupt, Eric.
Go ahead.
Eric, this
Oh, yeah,
is
we're
a
in
great
Seattle.
question
Yeah.
because we're both in Seattle.
Yeah.
DM Turner, this is a fantastic question that I have had so many conversations about. I have an answer for what the best wings in Seattle is.
Okay.
But my first answer to that is do not come to Seattle for buffalo wings. They are terrible.
Yeah.
They do not exist.
I agree. Don't go to Seattle for wings. Don't go to Seattle for Mexican. Don't go to Seattle for Mexican food or barbecue.
No.
Like
no,
those three are all out. Yeah.
100% agree. And all those are my top three. Those are actually my top three.
Yeah. It's I have one or two Mexican places that I go to, and compared to what I'm used to from growing up in Las Vegas, they are like average. Like they're not offensive.
So
I'm very finicky. I'm very finicky about my Mexican food.
In like the middle of nowhere, Colorado.
Yeah.
Driving. I remember going on a ski trip a couple years ago with some people, with some friends here, to Vail, Colorado. So we flew into Denver. We're driving to Vail. We stopped at the most rural, like, just middle of nowhere Mexican restaurant. Best Mexican food I've ever had in my entire life. Middle of nowhere, western central Colorado.
Yep.
Here there are a ton of Mexican restaurants, all of which you will overpay for, even compared to restaurant prices generally here. You're going to pay more than what you should, and it's mediocre as fuck.
Yeah. I think up here we got Ixtapa is kind of one of the big ones up here. And then the Mexican restaurant that I like is called El Torador. It's in Redmond. It's probably above average food. I go there pretty frequently for the chicken tortilla soup. But anyway, the question though, wings. That's a good question. Is Wingstop still around? Not Wingstop. I'm sorry, not Wingstop's still a thing.
They are, yes.
Wing Station.
I don't know what Wing Station.
Yeah, it's not in Texas, but
yeah.
I mean, I have so many questions for you. Like you had, like for just to jump into some topics. Yeah, if you want to answer that wing question, I'd love to hear it because I love wings, man. And I love the hottest ones. I did the challenge at Buffalo Wild Wings of the, I forgot what the hottest one was called, but I finished them all. The one question that I wanted to pose to you was like, you had two theist callers, you gave input, Matt gave input, the second one. Of course I want to hear your thoughts on that, but no, I would love to hear you answer this wing question first.
Yeah, sure. Before we even get to that, Alma, how you doing? Welcome.
Hey, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, sorry you're in the back room for a few minutes. I heard the chime and then it left my brain. So yeah,
yeah, that's fine. Don't worry. Hi, how are you?
We're doing good.
It's been a while since I have been able to be in the stream with Eric.
Yeah, it has been. I haven't really been over at Neil's channel all that much lately. Just for like I said, just for some reason my notifications aren't like showing me when things go off. I've had to like cut back my notifications too because after you get so many channels and you're like set notifications and set the bell on all of them, your phone just is constantly exploding with stuff that you just got to like say I'm busy and all these things. I finally like turned them all off.
And even still, it never gives you like the notifications that you actually kind of want. It just because it even still has a ceiling.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so yeah, it's good to see Alma. It's really nice. We'll have to do some catching up here tonight.
Yeah,
For
and I can give you the recipe for a really good tortilla soup.
ooh, I would love to have that. Yeah, I had there was a really good place in Las Vegas owned by
Mhm.
Jehovah's Witnesses actually called El
Oh,
Burrito,
really? Mhm.
and my family is going there since I was a little kid, and they had a really good like noodle soup, like it's like a noodle with like a chicken broth and like cheese and some veggies, and I there was a really good soup growing up, and then I moved up here and I started going to this El Torador place, and I got my soup there, and then when I went back to Vegas and had the old soup, I was like, oh, I don't
It's
like
different.
it's okay, like it's not hitting me like it used to anymore because I found the next level fix,
Sounds
you know.
better.
Yeah, I found
Mm.
something better. Like a
Wow.
relative, like once it put in perspective, I was like, it's not bad. Like, but I'm
Oh,
not feeling it anymore.
I know what to say to you. Then
Yeah.
I just remembered it's called Blazing, the hottest tier on
Oh, at
Buffalo Wild Wings.
Buffalo Wild Wings, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
blazing, yeah.
And so yeah, what did you, obviously you have to choose.
Yeah,
like,
that sounds right.
you know, what did you choose? You know, I guess I would ask that. And
I usually get Caribbean jerk at Buffalo Wild Wings, but I like back when went to Buffalo Wild Wings. The last time I went was probably 7-8 years ago for a work lunch at my previous job. But no, Caribbean jerk was usually my go-to. And then sometimes I'll just get like buffalo hot. I'm kind of more of a buffalo person now.
The standard one. Yeah. Oh no. Okay. I love that.
100%.
But I was in California, so I guess that is why. But I never find like anything that was really spicy.
Yeah, it can be difficult to find really spicy food. I've been to a few places.
I guess it's not for me.
Yeah, I've been to a few places where you'll ask for spicy and they give you like
the Caucasian version.
Yeah, it's like give you like white spicy.
Why
like,
so
no,
white?
no. I want
so white.
I want the real spicy. Give it to me. And yeah, hopefully they do that.
Yeah, and you know, I enjoyed the wing discussion. It may seem trivial, but man, one thing I did want to compliment you on was that, you know, I think your interplay with Matt Delante, I think you kind of humbled him because, you know, I think if you weren't there, he would probably go on a rant and his trigger finger on the hang up button would be so much more rampant. And I think the fact that you were there to kind of like, you know, quell certain callers. I mean, the two callers that he called in. I've seen you on the show prior, so I know, you know, it's not just specific to this show, but I've seen you, you know, really deal with, you know, the logic behind the caller that's calling in, you know, like to really get him think before Matt loses his patience, you know. And I've noticed that. In other words, like if you weren't there, I think the caller would have disappeared a lot quicker under the trigger finger of Matt's hang up button, you know.
Well, I don't want to comment on things like that too much. I think we all have different dynamics. We all have different appeals. Matt's been doing this for a very long time, so naturally I can understand patience can grow short, especially when you're dealing with the same bad argument, same evasions,
show.
Same evasions, same tactics, like numerous times.
After a while, you know where it's going.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of having different people, different outlooks, and different things, because we all kind of balance each other out. Because I can myself be too timid, I can be too unwilling to maybe point out a troll or to stop a person in their tracks because they're not answering the question or things like that. So if I am in any way influencing Matt towards my side or my method, he himself is also influencing me towards his, and hopefully we find a nice happy medium, because there's different applications for different people, even just the viewers, not necessarily the caller, because I made the joke before that the caller, I love all the callers, they're all fine. Whenever you call in, I talk to you, you're all fine. But honestly, we look at you, you're kind of a sacrificial lamb. Because we're going to take you and your argument and and all those things, and if you don't give us something good, we're going to dissect it for the viewing of the audience, and you're going to become basically a demonstration to everybody else, and now you're existing for the benefit of the audience. So whenever a caller does do an evasion or does, like I think I pointed out tonight when one of our individual callers refused to answer questions a few times. Something dumb like, I'm going to answer that. I could answer that, but I think you already gave me my answers. We're going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
Basically a non-answer. It's like, okay,
Yeah, definitely goes
come
on
on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much a non-answer.
So anyway, Matt handles that really well, I think, because that point is just kind of an insult. It's like you're insulting us and our conversation that we're trying to establish here. So watching Matt handle that, like I look at that and I go, yeah, you know, that's how it should be, because that we're being insulted by the caller at that point.
Maybe I think you might be giving him too much credit, and because like I really think that you you did pick up a lot of the slack there with, you know, whereas otherwise Matt probably would have been impatient. And the only reason I say that is because I've had a lot of experience with the shows, calling into and speaking to Matt Dillahunty. I think my last attempt, you know, I think I just got under his skin. Like I was trying to bring up, like I brought this up to you last time, you know, mystical experience, like psychedelics, you know, and when I tried to bring that up with Matt, he was on with Josie, I forgot her last name, but she's the only one with the name Josie on the show.
I know you're talking about.
Okay. And Josie, Matt, I made the comment, I'm like, hey man, if you had actually looked into the research like I told you, you know, you wouldn't be asking me this question here. And he, you know, he's like, oh, I'm not going to take that smug bullshit. Boom, hang up on you. So, you know, I didn't get to say anything afterwards, but, you know, I didn't get to make any point whatsoever. It was like right at the beginning of the call. And Josie, you know, chimed in right away. She's like, no, wait. Did you let him go? Oh, you let him go. Oh, yeah, I understand. It's the hang up. But, you know, what she said was that, you know, you have to understand that, you know, when these volunteers go in and they call their experience a mystical experience, you know, that's something that they're bringing upon into a projection themselves within the study. And, you know, if I had stuck around, you know, I would have said, no, that's not the case at all. You know, no volunteer in these studies actually uses the term mystical experience. This is something that's gauged by the professionals. If they meet a certain criteria, then the professionals will deem that, oh, this volunteer had a mystical experience. The actual volunteer themselves will never use that term. And I never got to point that out. I left her with that assumption because, you know, Matt hung up on me. And like, it's just one, I think I've talked to Matt a total of 7 times. Atheist experience and the line. So, you know, I can feel that the force of like, oh yeah, you know, he's dealt with this a very long time. He doesn't have patience for, you know, this. He knows where to get to with these ignorant calls, and he just wants to push the pedal forward. You know, make it entertaining to the audience. I definitely see that point, but at the same time, you know, man, if you've seen some of my calls, you will see that I point out a lot of things to Matt that he's just, you know, completely unfamiliar with. So. That's why I give you a lot more credit than just like chalking it up to, you know, Matt's experience.
Right. Well, I can't speak very much to the way Matt handles things like that, but all I can say is if you want to have a good conversation, especially with Matt, I've noticed Matt's 2 biggest triggers are 1, evading questions or being too verbose in your answer. If it's a yes or no question, start with a yes or a no, and then you can bloviate and elaborate a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you do it reverse and you don't give the yes or a no, that's going to be triggering. And that's triggering for me too. I latch, if I'm in a conversation and I latch onto that and I ask yes or no question, I want a yes or a no. I don't want preamble. And then the second thing I think that really gets him is when somebody defends atrocities like slavery, misogyny, genocide, things like that. So, and rightfully so. If somebody comes into my channel and starts defending slavery, I will probably run out of patience really quick because that is such an elementary subject when it comes to our morality that it's like if you are on the wrong side of that, I can't think of any excuse for you.
I have no patience for that.
Yeah.
I definitely get that.
So anyway, but Matt has his style. His style is very effective. He's helped many people. And like I said, that whole sacrificial lamb thing earlier, is that sure, he cuts you off, but that was probably beneficial for a lot of members in the audience. So don't take it personally. If you want to call in and have a good conversation with Matt, meet him where he's at. It's his show. He sets the rules. And if there are certain things that he does not want to engage with. Like, I'm not saying you were doing these things, but like previously, like evasions, defending atrocities and such.
Mhm.
If you know those things about him, then avoid those things. Because either you want to have a good conversation with Matt, or take that back. Either you want to have a continued conversation with Matt,
Yeah.
or you want to play by your rules, and then you're going to deal with Matt's rules. So
It almost sounds as though you could pose as a theist and get really far with him because you understand the dynamics of his proclivities and his where his
I've been watching him. I've been watching for a long time, so I kind of understand. I mean, I've only known him like personally now. I've only interacted with him face to face now for about a year.
Yeah.
But I've watched him for 15 years, so
Mhm.
I know a little bit more about him than he knows. Probably a lot more about him than he knows about me at this point. But those are the patterns that I've seen in his interview and his questioning and his conversation style. And that's why I say
also other thing that bothers him a lot is that if you go with the script and you don't want to come out of this.
No scripts. Yeah, that's another one. That's a very good point too. Calling for a conversation. He's not having people call in for a lecture. Because if somebody's reading from a script, that's not a conversation. So like, if I ask a question, what are you going to do? You're going to read me your script, or you're going to engage with me? So yeah, I wouldn't. Like I said, if you want a conversation with Matt, engage him on his terms, on his show. He sets the rules, and that's totally fair. So yeah, I guess that's
no. I because at one point I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't speak to Matt. I'll just wait till the other hosts, chime in. And
you can also do that. Sure.
Yeah, I've had much efficacy with the other hosts. I would get to, I'm like, wow, we actually got somewhere. They didn't hang up on me. And whereas you're right with Matt. I mean, you kind of have to adjust to his style of,
Well, yeah. You have to do that. You have to do that with everybody.
How different people are.
Yeah, you do that. You do that with literally everybody. Most people are like, you can kind of generalize a lot of people. Like, okay, a lot of people are I don't know. I can't even like describe it in certain ways, but people will cluster around certain conversation styles, and you have to understand your interlocutor to engage with them effectively. And that's something we do with literally everybody we know. And probably most people we deal with are about the same, but Matt might be an outlier. I could potentially be an outlier. Anybody could be. So it's really just comes down to just learning.
Because I know I would love, to get in. I mean, I know you're going to go into, I would love to hear you go into the cause, but I will say that, I've had discussions with, Tracy Harris, Jen Peoples, Aaron Raw, and I didn't run into that. It seems to be exclusive to Matt. I guess what I'm trying to get at. And so yeah, you can't rub him the wrong way. You have to kind of find a certain way to speak to him. Otherwise, yeah, it's going to go haywire. And
so yeah, I mean, that can be said of anybody though. You could potentially say a string of sentences to me, DM, and I could probably kick you out of my channel. Like it's everybody has their thresholds and their limits. I've seen Forrest Valkai rightfully go off on somebody who was being snarky with their pronouns, and they called in with a question, but because they used shit pronouns as an obvious insult to the trans movement, Forrest latched onto that, and Forrest tore him apart.
He will go on for 30 minutes.
Yeah, rightfully so, I think. So it's like everybody has their limits.
And
it's not,
keep the caller on hold the entire time.
And Matt is he's one of the front runners on the channel. He's there every week. He's one of the prominent figures on the line. So yeah, he's going to naturally have more of these encounters. So but like I said, any one of us could be our buttons could be pushed, and we could eventually be like that.
I think that there is a lot of people who go just for to see if they can get it under his skin, maybe I can make him get mad, or I don't know. I think there is a lot of people that just call to see him lose his patience.
Really, I agree with it may be just me, but I do feel that I mean, there is something about Matt that does require that focus of attention on being very careful with how you phrase things and how you wordify your concepts with him. Otherwise, like he will hang up on you faster than any other host. Like, it sounds like, it sounds like a defense on your behalf, and that's fine. I don't mind that. But I don't know if you're seeing the point that I'm still trying to get across. I really think that there is, certain eggshells that you really have to be careful when you're speaking to Matt. And, like, I really don't think that can't be denied. And I don't know, maybe you feel different about that, but I mean, that's been my experience. And I've been calling in since, I think, 2014, into the show. And I've talked to Matt for this duration of time. And so I've also had back and forth emails with him. So I don't know. I'm practicing. For me, it's just it's practicing how to approach someone with that mindset, because I could I can make the decision to, I don't have to call into the show, but no, I'm really intrigued by his way of thinking, and I want to see if I can get anywhere at all by maybe curbing my speech and the way I speak about these topics, and maybe not be so like my last call where I said, maybe if you had looked this up, see, I'm going to exclude that completely now. I can't, in other words, I don't want to rub his ego the wrong way. So I'm going to be as professional and articulate as possible to see if I can get anywhere with Matt. And
there's many conversations where people have gotten very, very far with Matt. So I mean, it's there. Like I said,
there's been like people who goes like with a very sincere opinion, or they want to learn, and they listen to him, and they stop talking when he's asking a question or something, but I have seen those conversations to go like really far, and they even end up like in a good note.
Yeah, but just meet him where he's at, and just like I said, Matt's had many good conversations. I've seen numerous occasions. Just meet him where he's at, and don't break those rules of his, which, like I said, you already listed them, and you're fine. Anyway, I want to invite or welcome Stephanie. Stephanie, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a while.
Hi, Stephanie.
I haven't talked to you in a while. But you mentioned that call with John in Forest. I screened that call.
Oh, you did? Oh, it was the
I was the call screener, and when Chuck called and gave his pronouns as attack helicopter.
Yeah.
And I said,
that's
classic.
I really, would it be okay with you if I didn't use that? Because neither one of those things are pronouns. They're actually nouns. And he started laughing, and I said, well, yeah, okay. Well, is it okay if I put in none? So I put in none. And Morgan, who was producing, attached a note that said that the original pronouns given were attack/helicopter. And what ensued was one of the most delightful pieces of seriousness. When someone calls in to talk about, I believe, the original topic that he wanted to address was religion as a
universal,
as an external phenotype. In other words, like a spider web is an external phenotype of spider, because it's something that he wanted to make that argument. And Forrest led off with, well, first of all, we're going to get one thing out of the way. And, you do realize that's a shitty thing to do. It makes people uncomfortable, et cetera, and so forth. And the guy wouldn't back down. And then John weighed in and said, well, yeah, you do realize that was a shitty thing to do, but I think we can move on. And the next thing Forrest said was the best thing ever. Well, I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
And there was a half an hour of Forrest explaining to the audience and to Chuck who called in several times after. I had the pleasure of speaking with Chuck a couple of more times. But he learned his lesson. He didn't pull that shit again. And this, I think, is what you're talking about, Eric, where you do have to meet people. Their show, and you called in. It's Jimmy's channel. It's their show. When I'm on Takis, it's our show. Whoever I'm co-hosting with.
Yeah.
My show. Somebody wants to. We want to have a conversation, but if you want to tiptoe over the line, then we're going to basically say no. We're going to have this conversation, and you're going to have to listen. So I don't know if that fills in any of the blanks in the conversation.
Yeah, no, it does. I remember the conversation fairly well, and I think it was out of that conversation.
I remember that call very well.
Yeah, I think it was listening to Forrest on it. He mentioned, I think the conversation went into definitions and how Forrest basically talked about the DSM-5 and the ICD-11. I think is another psychology manual, and so I ended up downloading those to actually read those sections because that was something I wasn't aware actually existed. So thanks to that conversation, I learned a few things, and I found some resources and I downloaded them. I looked at them. So yeah, it was
that's kind of where you have to be. I mean, especially if you're going to do packets or something. None of us really want to be expert in any of these issues. We really don't. We just as soon move on. But there's so much bullshit out there, and there's so much flippancy out there, and I've made this point before. If somebody wants to talk about external phenotypes, but they come in with their bigotry, wearing their bigotry on their sleeve, it's kind of important to say, well, am I going to be sitting here with somebody who's going to veer off into some never land of lunacy from the get-go? So when you have the opportunity to call it out as expertly as Forrest did in that conversation, I think it's educational for both the person who called. It probably won't do that shit again, and for the people who are listening.
Well, Stephanie, I mean, if you were the filter, screening those calls, before that call even made it to the stage, shouldn't you have eradicated it right there and then? No. Were you the screener for today?
I would. So DM, I would say that Stephanie did the right thing because that kind of attitude should be eviscerated in public where people can learn from it.
Okay.
So passing that on to the host and letting the host do that job. Yeah, I think Stephanie did the right thing there.
I mean, if you pass along the information to the host, this is the other thing about call-in shows. The hosts make the call as to which call to take, which call not to take. It's their decision. The screener, the guy had a legitimate topic, external phenotypes as they relate to religion. He just called in with a snarky comment. It's germane to the show, and the host took the call. To do two things. If the guy was going to say, "Yeah, that was a stupid thing, and I shouldn't be snarky, and it was really dumb, and I learned something," then okay, let's go and talk about the external phenotype thing. The guy dug in his heels.
Yes, that exactly. That was what I say. Yeah.
He dug in his heels and said, "No, I don't see the point. I think the pronouns are silly. I think that transgenderism is terrible and all this other stuff." So he's digging in his heels. That's Chuck taking out the shovel and not remembering the first rule of holes.
Yes, but I think there's
just keep digging.
I think there's a distinction though between if the screener has any power at all to make a distinction between people who have a legitimate ignorance on the topics and they can be displayed on the show for everyone to see, whereas you don't want a complete troll to bypass the scenes.
That's not but he wasn't a complete troll.
Yeah. Well, okay.
He had a legitimate topic. He just thought he'd be funny.
No, I agree.
Specifically, he thought he'd be funny with me, which, okay, I don't have to argue with you. My job is to have a 2-minute conversation and to put you on the show or to hang up on you.
Yeah.
And the call screeners can leave notes for the hosts, which they constantly address. They're like, well, we have a note here that
we have information.
We're skeptical of where this is going.
We not only have the current subject of the call, but we also have a call history under that, which we can see.
Okay.
Previous comments.
Because I was in the queue for about 70 minutes, and I don't know what screener. Maybe I came in too late. I chimed in too late, but I didn't make it in the queue.
Yesterday?
No, it was today.
It was with, well, no, I was yachting today.
It was with Eric and Matt, and I was trying to make it in. I might have been too late. Some of the mods were telling me that the call lines, they're down, but some of the mods were saying the call lines were up, and I was still in the queue. So, I have no idea what happened there, but. I really wanted to talk to Matt and Eric. I've never had that combination before of Matt and Eric. I've spoken to Eric on, individually, and I've spoken to Matt with other hosts like Phil Session, Tracy Harris, and Jen Peoples, so on and so forth. But I've never had Eric and Matt, and I really wanted to try to get to that. And the reason I did was because last caller.
Pro tip, the line's usually open. If it depends on who's producing, but the lines are usually open 15 minutes before the show starts.
Mm-hmm. And until they say it's closed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I watched that today because I thought about calling in today for the first time, and I didn't. But that's also in part why I'm here right now. So.
Anyway, I just thought I'd tell that little. You mentioned good old Chuck, and Chuck was a perennial for a while. He hasn't called back in a while, but he hasn't been banned or anything.
Yeah,
but
that's another thing too. Like when people get thrashed and then like hung up on, they're not banned in most cases unless they did something really egregious. Like they're welcome to call back when they're willing to play by the rules or be more respectful or whatever else. So it's very rare somebody actually gets banned. They have to be like an outright troll or
or bigot
or anything. Like there's a list, but like it's hard to hit that list. You have to really try or really be just a jackass to get there.
Learn who the trolls are too, and you get to learn who people are going to be serious. And also there are some people that are, in fact, your call's not welcome here. You're not.
Yeah.
No, cool. Thank you for that insight. Real quick,
hi,
Eric.
Hi, Eric.
I just want to say that in the early, in the early era of the show, I want to say back in 2009, maybe around there, I called in and I was still kind of struggling on how to define my perspective. And the screener asked me, are you an atheist or a theist? It's one of the first questions they ask you before the whole pronoun thing became, really popular. They didn't ask for pronouns back then. Now it's, it's a regimen nowadays, but on the show. But when I called in back then, the primary question was, are you a theist or an atheist? Mm-hmm. And I said, I think I said I'm neither, or I'm neither or both, something like that, right? And I got asked the screeners, and Matt, the very first thing he brought up when I came on to the call when he pulled me up was like, it says here that you're an atheist and a theist, and that's not possible, And I'm like, well, if it's not possible, why did I get past the screeners? I'm pretty sure nowadays they have a more rigid way to assess all this and to make sure things like that don't fly by. But at the time, Matt was like one of the persons that made me really think about man, what is my position? Am I arguing for atheism? Am I arguing for theism? And I went to a rabbit hole. I started looking up the etymology of the word theist. I realized it was a coin by Ralph Cudworth, apprentice of one of these Cambridge philosophers. Then I was like, okay, my view obviously aligns more with theism, after that assessment. But I mean, it took that interaction.
Sure, and sometimes that is what it takes. But like from Matt's point of view in that call, atheist versus theist is basically equivalent of God believer or not a God believer.
Yeah.
And so by saying
A or not A.
Yeah, A or not A. By saying neither or both, you're trying to basically violate one of the axioms of logic. It's like me asking you, are you a basketball or not a basketball? And imagine if somebody says, well, I'm both or I'm neither. Like, what?
Not basketball.
Yeah.
No, no, yeah, I went through that whole tizzy, and what I examined, I guess the way it was operating in my mind at the time was, I had this narrow, I guess, definition of atheism in my head where I'm like, okay, they don't, the parody that they often use, the sky daddy, the anthropomorphic entity. I'm like, okay, I know I don't believe in that, but I still have, a certain conception of God. It may be panentheism, something like that. So, how am I to, flesh this out and, express it in such a way that it's clear? And I mean, that's been my whole endeavor with, speaking to materialists and stuff like that, is trying to sharpen the language and really, concretely define what we mean with all these words and stuff, So yeah. I went into that rabbit hole, but I was grateful for it. I was like, okay, Matt, he's the one that threw me into that.
Yeah. And I'm glad to hear you're grateful for it, because I mean, Ryan just mentions that that's the point of taking that call and bringing that up. It's because you learned maybe a little bit of bruised ego, but it happens. I've gone to conversations where I got, berated or whatever, and I walked out with my head held low, but you learned something from it, and so did the audience. So like it's generally a good outcome. Could have been done without any potential like thrashing or embarrassment, maybe, but we're just humans. We approach things in the moment, and numerous times I've seen myself, especially, but I've also seen Matt admit it, and others on the line, Jimmy as well, where they look back on a conversation and go, okay, I maybe should not have handled it this way. I should have probably handled it this way. Getting out of the moment and having like some reflection. We're just humans. We handle things as they come to us.
No, definitely.
Yeah,
and it doesn't help to have Steve McFray as one of your top friends, dissecting.
Let's not get into that. But
it's like, that's what really, I mean, it was his influence that made me really dive into the etymology and all of that.
It's good. Yeah, it's good. So Diviz, I didn't mention earlier, but he's I'm assuming now a channel member. So thank you for signing up. Thank you for that sweet 99 cents. I'm going to put that to such good use. I don't know what yet. It's not a full $1, but it's most of a tip for a latte. So thank you so much for doing that. Is
that
switch
YouTube
to
membership?
150. Switch it to 150, and you got my.
Yeah, 150. Nah, I'm giving 99 cents. I am the cheapest of the online atheist activists.
All right, I got you.
I am a bargain atheist activist. I'm like what you find at the dollar store.
Fair enough.
That's what you're looking at with me. So you keep expectations low, and then you won't disappoint people.
All right.
So, all right. Well, hey, we're already an hour in. Let's look at some memes and talk about stuff, because So I mentioned this on a previous stream, but I think I also mentioned earlier tonight too, is one of the dead end paths I went down, I guess you can kind of say. When I deconverted 15 years ago, I got I became aware of an online forum called 4chan. Don't go there. It's a terrible place. It's full of terrible people. I'm telling you right now, do not go to 4chan. I'm just simply telling you the story of what happened 15 years ago. Although 15 years ago, 4chan was not as bad of a place. But anyway, I became enamored, lurking the boards, grabbing images that I thought
the Wild West.
Interesting. It was the Wild West. Yeah,
so it's like Twitter now.
Parody of Reddit, I think.
It's beyond any of that. It transcends all that, because it's literally an image board that you can post whatever you want anonymously, and so that basically allows people to be what can go wrong. Their only rule is don't post. Don't post illegal things. So, but anyway, I was pretty
legal in which state?
Yeah, I was enamored with it back in the day, and there was a lot of atheist, anti-religious, anti-theist memes that I was fascinated with because I had just recently deconverted. So like this was like, well, this is like candy. So anyway, I amassed a huge folder from 4chan of images, like literally 9,797 images in here.
Wow.
And
Nice.
we're talking like 15 years ago. So they accumulated this over a lot of time. Anyway, I got a few queued up, and then once we run out, I'm gonna kind of dive in the folder and find some more to look at. But these are just classical atheist, anti-religious, or even maybe some religious memes that we can just look at and go, is this a good point? Is this not a good point? What do we think about this? So anyway,
bad meme, good meme. Is it gonna survive? Is it gonna die out?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many. That's the funny thing too. Like we're in like kind of a more mature meme economy where new memes are popping up and old memes are kind of like falling to the wayside.
Yeah.
Okay, so Chrome tab. Let's see if people see this. Bam. Okay, I'm gonna make this get big in this. Okay, cool. So this is poorly worded because this is not really the quote I think that Christopher Hitchens actually uttered, but the quote is, what can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence, aka Hitchens's razor.
Hitchens' razor,
Hitchens' razor. So I like this because it is so to the point. Bullshit asserted without evidence, or rather anything that's just presented without any support can be immediately dismissed without any support. And this really comes down to the burden of proof, because some individuals think that once I present something, it's up to you to debunk it. It's up to you to tell me why I'm wrong, when really it's up to the individual to say why I'm right.
Definitely. Yeah. But I think, I think you're still looking at it through the lens of, a kind of naturalist view, in that, it could be used in its opposite as well. Someone who makes the claim that there is no God, you could still say what can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. It works both ways. And that, I think that's the flaw inside the meme.
Well, actually, I completely agree that if somebody asserts that there is no God, they need to present evidence for that, because they've made a positive assertion and they take on the burden of proof. That's not something I state.
Positive assertions.
Yeah, I will state things like, for instance, the Christian triomni God. I will point at that God and say, yeah, that God definitely does not exist. I will assert that God does not exist. And the evidence I bring forward is the inherent contradiction with such a God existing, plus the world we see, plus what we see in things like the Bible. Like, let's say somebody, let's say, like, when I say triomni God, I'm talking about the Christian God, the one,
the Holy Trinity,
the Holy Trinity, or the all-powerful, all-loving, all knowledgeable God that the Bible presents and most Christians present. I can sit there and say confidently that God does not exist, because we have a world in which we know that God which would have not created. For instance, one of my videos on my channel is, could God not kill children? We have numerous examples in the Bible of God directly and indirectly killing children. So if your God is all powerful, all knowing, and all loving, he should want to avoid killing children. He should know how to avoid killing children. He should know what it would take to not kill children, and yet it happened anyway in the Bible. So either God was subject to the circumstances at the time and he had no choice, in which case he's not all powerful or all knowing, or he did it anyway, in which case he's not all loving. So I can present the Christian God and say that God definitely does not exist, and my evidence is basically problem of evil. Like I can establish a contradiction in reality according to these different truth claims. I can establish a contradiction to support my claim that God does not exist. So I will make that claim, and that's my evidence for it. But if I make a claim like the deist God does not exist, or just a general spirit God in general doesn't exist, then sure, you can dismiss that claim because I'm bringing no evidence to the table for that. So in a way, I agree with you, Turner, but also in a way I disagree with you, because this statement still stands in all those cases that I just presented.
No. I mean, I've dealt with this one many times over myself. Like it's. I think it's the main quote that people often refer to is the Epicurus. Is God willing to prevent evil but not able? Then he's not omnipotent. Is he, able but not willing? Then he's malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Then whence cometh evil? Is he neither able or willing? Then why call him God?
Yeah, it's a classic problem of evil.
And what people often overlook is, Epicurus was a theist. This argument didn't make him an atheist. And I think...
Well, the argument... the argument doesn't make you an atheist. The argument makes you reject the triomni God.
Yeah, it makes you reject the logic behind that. Yeah. And
you can still be a theist.
Because God.
The answer to the problem of evil is just water down the God just a little bit. Yeah, God's not quite all powerful. He's got a lot of power, but not quite enough to get the job completely done. He's mostly loving, but not omni-loving. Like, all you got to do is take one of those qualities and just water it down a little bit, and you've solved the problem of evil. So it's not an argument against the existence of a God. It's an argument against an existence of that type of God.
That type of God, yeah, I agree. Yeah. I absolutely agree. Because what it represents is that anthropomorphic entity that most people have in their mind when they think about these topics. I mean, it's just an unfortunate case that when people, imagine God, they imagine, the paternalistic anthropomorphic deity in their mind. But then again, these are the same people who, they don't study Greek philosophy or the theology and so on and so forth. They would, a term like politics, the ground of being, as the divine, would completely go over their heads. And, so I agree that it's towards that type of God. And it wouldn't apply to politics, Godhead, the same argument wouldn't be applicable. At least that's the way I interpret that now.
Sure. Hey, Nitty, how you doing? I'm sorry, I didn't see you down there.
Good. You said memes, and I had to come on. I couldn't help myself.
Yeah.
I was sitting there, eating my peanuts in the background, enjoying the show, and I'm like, I need to be in the show. So now, you know what? I had a thought here, that I don't think that you have to, as a Christian, adopt benevolent. Because I don't think that early Christians tried to do that either.
Yeah, probably not. Because I think.
But they would say God is love, but they would categorize things that we perceive as evil now as love.
Yeah.
So, like the judgments on the nations,
I think we even
all that stuff. Yeah.
Even at this time, we have something that everybody just categorizes like tough love. When you do something that might not be perceived as nice, but you are doing it because of the greater good.
Yeah, there's like a disagreement of what benevolence means, I suppose.
And then there's also the concept of agape, the love from God to the Son, like that's supposed to be, the Bible love, infinite, unconditional, without judgment, which, we all fall short the example of. And
I don't think agape love excludes the love that includes judgment. Because revelation would make no sense.
Well, I mean, I think that would depend on how you interpret damnation, how you interpret hell.
No, I think the judgments alone. You don't even need hell. Like the lake of fire business, like everything going up to that is horrific. Like what?
Yes.
Right? Jesus riding on the white horse covered in the blood of his enemies. I mean, who needs hell?
Yeah, and the blood going all the way to the mouth of the horses.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose I speak from the revelation of a lot of. I spend a lot of time focusing comparative religion studies on.
Oh, okay. No, I meant the Book of Revelation, but
yeah. The mystic sees all as one, And, that why, in that sense, you cannot hurt anyone because they are, essentially seen as yourself, as your brother. Ramana Maharshi was asked one time, how should we treat others? And his response was to say, there are no others, because if you see the entirety of the manifestation as one entity, then, you can't sin against it. You can't, commit rape, you can't murder, so on and so forth. Now you have a basis, a grounding for this so-called objective reality that all these theologians and atheists are so enamored by and argue about,
Okay.
That was a happy tangent.
Yeah. I mean, but it is. I guess the reason why there is a silence there is because it is a mystical utterance. Like a lot of people have not had mystical experience. These are the revelations of the mystics. That I think that's why Meister Eckhart said, the theologians may quarrel, but the mystics of the world speak the same language. And we can't relate to that unless we've had that. And so our only response to that is silence.
My silence was because I'm looking through my memes folder. I wasn't listening to the conversation.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So
my silence is because I stepped away to grab another beer.
Yeah.
So I missed the
part
of the conversation.
So right there, Turner. I mean, innocently, you misinterpreted the room, and I wonder how many of the mystics before misinterpreted what they were experiencing and attributed to something that wasn't actually the case.
We see that. I think that's why
they're all going to land on the same thing.
I think that's why he made a distinction between the mystics and the theologians. The theologians are going to remain correlating. The mystics see this fundamental unity. So they don't reside in that type of argumentation. Or that ambiguousness, and they see the divine not out of their intellect, out of conjuration of their mind and imagination, but what they experience inside contemplation. It's not something that's up to the imagination to conjure. It's at least I'm speaking from the vantage point of mystics. So that's why I said it's a mystical utterance, and not a lot of people have experienced that, especially materialists, especially atheists, even
So
theists.
it sounds like you put a lot of stock in these mystical utterances and experience, right?
Yeah.
Of course, I come from that. I've had a mystical experience for myself, and my whole endeavor in these topics is from that vantage point. It's my whole passion.
So this actually touches on last time we spoke, but how if I remember correctly, last time we spoke, you were claiming mystical experience, and I think we agreed that people can experience hallucinations, false memories, and just simple inventions of the mind. And my question to you was, I think back then, was how do you differentiate between the two? Have you come up with a way to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very akin to, a theist I might talk to about this, saying like, how do you know it wasn't the devil, tricking your mind?
Sure.
And,
outside influence. That's another possibility. So what mechanism do you have to determine?
Well, for me, it's
the reality of it.
There's been a lot of research and neuroscience in the area of mystical experience since the work of William James, and they do find this phenomenon to be a kind of universal happening that's been going on for millennia. And so like in one stance you could be skeptical, you can deny it, but nevertheless it still produces these instances that they've been able to record.
So I'm not denying. So here's the thing: I'm not denying any of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking you. I mentioned this earlier on a call earlier today. I look at probabilities, right? So you're claiming that you had a mystical experience and that you attribute it to some external a source, I'm guessing, that other people also have tapped into, and you're claiming some unity in all these experiences. On the other hand, I have lots of people who will hallucinate and have false memories for lots of different reasons. So from my point of view, I got these two right here. I'm going to look at what's more plausible. I'm going to look at, okay, one claims the supernatural, one does not. One claims just the natural. I know the natural exists because I'm a part of the natural. And on top of that, I know that many people experience hallucinations for many different reasons, as we mentioned earlier, brain damage, chemical imbalances, drugs, and things like that. So what mechanism do I have to look at your claim and compare it to everything else I know and give your claim more gravity, more
No, I definitely hear where you're coming from.
Can you give me anything to use?
Oh no, definitely. They go by a certain criteria in these studies. I don't know how deeply you've looked into them. One of the basis for my cause, from the atheist experience to the line, has always been bringing up these studies to Matt Dillahunty, which I can never get to a point because he hangs up on me so quickly. And so what I was trying to explain to him is that they do have these measures that they've developed over decades of neuroscientific research that, they can pinpoint what occurs when this happens. And it's not necessarily when you say like, oh, it's inside the mind, even that goes out the window because the way the in Eastern philosophy, they call it non-dualism. The subject-object dichotomy that you experience in your everyday waking consciousness collapses. So like there is no boundary between what you perceive as a material body and the rest of nature. That becomes a unity. This is why the mystics say all is one. And, that's the pinpoint where they base it on. And so when you ask a question like, how can you be sure? I mean, without fail, throughout history, it's always been the case that, people have these types of experiences that seem to transcend the ego, ego death. It's not something that they can really pinpoint inside themselves. Like Michael Pollan said, it's not, you could say it's objective or you could say it's objective. Right. They mean the same thing.
So DM, sorry, I asked for a mechanism to determine between the two, and you basically just hand wave towards papers, like scientific research. Why, if that scientific research is sound and actually is pointing to something real, okay, why isn't it more widely picked up? Why isn't other scientists looking into this? Because if a scientific paper is able to conduct a certain set of experiments and get consistent results and then publish it, why aren't other scientists picking this up?
Is that your impression? Because I would disagree.
Without having looked at any of these papers you're mentioning, that is the impression I get, unless they are not scientific papers.
No, they definitely are. I would look up if you really...
Can you give me one example? Like, can you give me a doctor's name on it, an institute's
Dr.
name?
Roland Griffiths out of Johns Hopkins University. He initiated these studies with psilocybin in '99. Okay. And he dosed volunteers.
We won't look at it now, but do you have a link to the paper that I can take a look at?
Sure, no, I will definitely provide it.
Okay. But I do have a question. You just mentioned that it's with mushrooms, basically.
Psilocybin.
Psilocybin being the active ingredient in mushrooms.
Yes, psilocybin. But these studies, like I said, have been going on for decades.
But then how can you make the difference between a hallucination?
Well, the way
by drugs,
they've been doing it. If you want to,
I had hallucinations by drugs, and I don't claim that is a mystical experience.
If you Google right now, the Carmelite nuns that were studied under fMRI, they went into a state of contemplation. They achieved this naturally. Likewise, Tibetan monks did this through meditation. They were studied with EEG. These are peer-reviewed studies that you can look up. They're there for everyone to examine.
Yeah, but that's what they see in the brain. They don't see it outside.
The reason I think psychedelics became popular is because, they have to wait around for the nun to, enter this contemplative state. And it's a wishy-washy, are they going to enter it or not? the psychedelics seem to be more efficacious in that. They seem to be like a guaranteed facet into this area of consciousness that they're studying. And I mean, if you really want proof of it, I would search the term the psychedelic renaissance.
So Alma just mentioned that she's had experiences with drugs, and she came out of it not attributing it to any type of mystical or spiritual state. Turner, can you tell Alma?
I will second that. I will second.
Okay, so Salty's also had experiences like this, and he's several, and he's reached different conclusions than you, Turner, and also the doctor that you're citing. What did they do wrong? Can you tell us what they did wrong? Why they didn't reach your conclusion?
I don't think it's necessarily that they did anything wrong. I recall that it's not for the volunteer to gauge whether they had a mystical experience.
I'm sorry.
So
well, that kind of caught me. It's not for the volunteer to gauge whether they had a mystical experience or not.
Yeah.
It's up to the doctor doing the brain scan.
Yes, because they
How in the world could they do that?
What does a brain pattern look like? That's like I'm guessing the doctor's looking at like data and like a brain scans, and they can go, that's a mystical experience, and that's not.
Well, yeah, like I said, these studies have been developing these gauges over decades, and they go by these 6 criteria. So even if they claim that it was nothing that they would consider divine, but if they meet the criteria, then they would be deemed by the professionals to have had a mystical experience.
So what defines a mystical experience when you're looking at a brain scan?
I can put it in a link. See, I don't know if you'll be able to. Okay, I have a link that I put in the private chat if you want to take a look at it. But that's the criteria that they go by. And this is used in,
So this is, I'll show it. This is just a PowerPoint slide, though. There's no citations or anything here, but I'll go ahead and show it. Boom. Okay. So let's take a look at this. So I'm asking, what does a mystical experience look like to a doctor? Because apparently, according to you, it's up to the doctor to determine whether somebody's having a mystical experience or not the subject, which is odd.
The subject could have, like, let's say they have a notion of God, like the so-called Sky Daddy.
So, so sorry, Turner, I don't want to cut you off here. I want to kind of keep on this slide here.
Sure.
So the first bullet point is unity, the core feature, interconnectedness of all people and things, all is one, pure consciousness. How does that manifest in a brain scan?
Well, within the brain, I can show you how it manifests in the brain scan as well.
But the thing is that it's the brain.
I'm looking at the same thing,
outside.
And these are self-reported conditions. These aren't necessarily like these are self-reported descriptions of what they've seen. It like they're monitoring the brain activity, but the participants are giving their descriptions of these experiences,
which is their
descriptions
interpretation
are all
of it.
Over the damn place, right? And they correlate to all different kinds of things that aren't static. It's not like these people have these mystical experiences and every single participant goes, I saw a purple shoe and it flew on a rainbow and it told me with its soul, I love you. Like,
it told me 17 times 2 is 34.
Yes. And there's none of that. It's just like all over the map of different like things that they could have been influenced by spiritually, maybe their dispositions towards particular religions. And, I think there's an what's the word I'm looking for? A clustering of qualities of those experiences to make them look more universal than they are. If that makes sense. So like this deep feeling of love, where did that love come from? Oh, it came from Jesus. What about you? Where did that deep feeling of love come from? Well, it came from Allah. Well, those two things are like actually very distinct things and unique to the individual, making them non-universal, but they get clustered into these categories of the deeply felt positive mood, right? Now,
whatever their cultural influence is.
Or maybe they have something going on in their life where they're exploring another idea, or they don't want to attribute it to something they've experienced before. And
right.
So
exactly.
We can't say for sure. We're not in their heads. But like the best thing I think you could say to me, I don't know if this is a steel man for you. It's that okay, Nitty. Even though they're not all reporting the exact same phenomena, it's more the cumulative case of all these things together that they self-report is then evidence that there's something deeper going on in the brain than just what we see on the scan. Is that more fair?
Yeah, it's a little bit closer than, I would say what's going on.
To what Nidhi said, and something that Nidhi mentioned regarding that, how we can be influenced. I'm going to let you know something that I used to have sleep paralysis. I had it since I was a teenager, and it was really funny to me that when I was a teenager and I was a Jehovah's Witness, and we had the whole thing of demons and thinking that something is going to come to attack us. And when I have those it was hallucinations, because there were hallucinations. When I had sleep paralysis, I will clearly see demons. Like that will be like very clear to me, and that will be my experience at that time. But after I grew older, and then after I left the religion and I stopped believing in that, I still have the sleep paralysis. But now I don't see demons. I don't see anything anymore. I just know that I am having an episode, and that's it. So as you can see, what I'm seeing in my hallucinations is now influenced by what I'm experiencing in life.
No, I definitely hear that point too. Eric, if you wouldn't mind, that last link I put, it shows the brain activity. A lot of people report demons inside delirium tremens, the withdrawal of severe alcoholism. And, Carl Jung suggested that it may be a deep archetype within the mind to project, something like the demon. But when it comes to the case of mystical experiences, that's definitely not the parallel I would make with mystical experience.
So
it's a different category of experience altogether.
So this diagram here, I'm sorry, the diagram here is basically worthless to us because there's no labels. I don't doubt this came from.
I can tell you what it is. It's data gained from an fMRI scan of the brain. So what you're looking at on the left-hand side is ordinary state of consciousness. So when you go under an fMRI, and all those circles that you see on the perimeter are different areas of throughout the brain, the cognitive portion, the left hemisphere, the right hemisphere, and
which areas are what colors?
Yeah, the connections that they make. And so that's what we're all experiencing right now in an ordinary state of consciousness. When you undergo this psilocybin state, at the peak of it, now you get to what's on the right side, which is connections being made, throughout the brain. And I think that's why people report, they felt as though it was beyond dimensionality. They felt like all time collapse.
Right.
There was no.
Yeah, because your brain gets turned from 100% to 1,000%.
Yeah. So taking out your word,
that's
sure.
what we would expect to see.
Yeah, taking out your word, sure. Left side is some representation of brain activity not on drugs. Right side is on drugs.
Yes.
How does that all support the idea of the mystical and supernatural?
So
it's just increased brain activity as far as we can tell.
You could say that, but what I'm getting at here is that
I did say that, and that's as far as I go with any type of assessment of it.
No, I completely hear that. But what the professionals are saying is that on the right side, they can make no distinction from that type of brain activity between what mystics have reported throughout the ages when they spoke about these.
How do they compare what's on the right side with what mystics report throughout the ages? They don't have brain scans of those mystics, so how do they even compare that?
Yes,
100%.
I was like, how would they even make this?
That's a massive leap there. And here's the thing: I'm going to cut to the chase here, Turner. I think taking drugs puts you in altered brain states. I think those altered brain states are probably phenomenal and amazing. And if you're not experiencing a bad trip, it can probably be really eye-opening and maybe even some cases life-changing. I think even
it's a lot of fun.
I think even
right spaces.
Yeah, I think even oh man, I'm totally slipping on his name. Famous astronomer, Carl Sagan. He himself.
That guy.
He himself, under I think the moniker Mr. X or Professor X or something like that, talked about smoking weed and other drugs and how it opened his mind into understanding more about the universe because it helped him bring down inhibitions and examine things more. I fully acknowledge that drugs can alter your perception about things, but it's a massive leap to jump to there's a unifying mystical force behind this. Because you have your claims that we're looking at that there are some doctors that say that this is the case, that there are some people who self-report that this is the case, but then here we have two people right here. We have Salty and we have Alma who said they've also been in these states and they don't attribute to the mystical. So we have conflicting evidence.
What I would often say is that, in these studies with Johns Hopkins, so you're right. They don't have the brain scans of mystics that lived thousands of years ago, of course.
So I don't see how, that's the thing. Like, I don't see how you can make any comparison between what they reported and what we have as data.
No, sure. I hear that. And the way they make the leap there is when, they have professionals who study comparative religion alongside this research with Dr. Roland Griffiths, and they do read descriptions of the experience. So they're comparing reported descriptions, and they can make no distinction between a naturally occurring mystical experience amongst mystics and what they're inducing with their volunteers. They can find no distinction there.
But so that's how they know that it wasn't that the mystics thousands of years ago they also took drugs?
They don't have the brain scan.
Drugs are not something new.
Yeah, you can doubt it.
You're welcome the exact same thing.
Yeah, your skepticism is welcome, but they see no distinction between their reports. So when they speak of God existing outside of space and time, this is the exact same thing that people experience when they undergo that full-fledged, high activity brain state. They can't say that, it was like, it's not like time is unfolding in the way we normally experience. They see kind of all time collapsing into the moment, all future, all past, and it's not something easily put into words.
What do you mean by you cannot make a distinction between what was happening
the descriptions
now versus then, like in terms of what substance they were taking?
Yeah, so if you go back to that slide where it shows the 6 characteristics, the description of the mystics and the description of their volunteers meet criteria on these measures that they developed over decades to gauge this, through this kind of way to interpret it out of the language of the volunteers. They both meet criteria on the measures that they've developed on these 6 criteria. So if a volunteer, for instance...
Hey, what are those 6 criteria?
That's why I said if you want to go back to that blue slide, it shows the 6 criteria. And in that blue slide, the top one says unity, it's a core feature.
How do you verify? I'm sorry.
Oh, these ones. Okay.
I gotta cut you off here. Okay. So these are 6 criteria. How do you verify pure consciousness? That first point.
Okay.
Like, how is that verified? Like,
I know. I admit this is very vague to people who have.
This is so Turner. I'm sorry. This is woo. I mean, like everything you're telling us right now, we don't accept. If you had hard evidence and everything like that, we would not have to have this type of like dance and stuff like that.
But you do realize this is a peer-reviewed study that's been published in the Psycho.
There's lots of bogus peer-reviewed studies. So just because it's peer-reviewed doesn't mean it necessarily has viability behind it.
But I would say
here's the thing:
reject it outright.
I have a question.
The problem also with some kind of studies is that we need to see the entire study, because sometimes there are just excerpts And I think that people at times, I have seen it because it has happened like in the Spanish channel, that they just see like title or a paragraph and they conclude, oh, this is what it is.
Oh yeah,
and they
well,
don't
that's
read
definitely
the
not
rest.
me. I waste a lot of my time reading peer-reviewed studies from top to bottom. You know, like I don't just read the abstract and I'll like here you go. You know, like that's definitely not me. And so that's why I said I at least would invite you to look
Okay.
into it a little bit more. And
so Jaconda is asking, do you have a link to the study? Because so far you provided us
Yeah.
a couple of images.
no,
Just
yeah, definitely.
provide a link to the study. Go ahead and put it just
Mhm.
in the chat, in the public chat. Actually, tell you what, if you put it in the private chat, I'll go ahead and paste it into the
Cool.
public
All
chat.
right. Yeah.
I just want to add real quick. Given what I do in my videos, I have read local and state traffic law front to back, and yet all the time in my comments, I get people stating otherwise, and I constantly have to correct them.
What I find
Yeah.
interesting here is that we seem to only care about particular substances giving us evidence of transcendent things, or particular experiences that may be tied to those experiences, or especially chemicals, right? What if there were a substance that people consumed, interacted with, and it seems to alter them in, we'll say, generously consistent ways amongst most humans?
Well,
What prevents us from saying that that substance, let's say they share the experiences of extreme depression, losses of time, very deep sleep, moments of euphoria at the beginning of the consumption of this substance, right? Why would those not be evidence of like a slowed down time world that people enter by taking this substance, where it's really fun to get in it, and then you sleep really deeply, and then when you exit that special world, you're really fucking sad, right? How is why do these kind of psychedelics get a special privilege of mystical experience and that doesn't? Do you get what I'm saying? And have you
No,
figured out
I
what
definitely.
substance I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, definitely. What I'm trying to pull up for you is a chemical structure, skeletal structural diagram of psilocybin versus like DMT. DMT is produced in the brain naturally. And so a lot of the speculation now like I mentioned the Carmelite nuns that engaged in contemplation that, entered into these states naturally, or the Tibetan monks with meditation. The speculation amongst professionals now is that they are releasing endogenous NN-DMT. Your own body makes this, and the whole reason why psychedelics have such a profound effect is because they mimic what's already naturally inside of you. Psilocybin is a very closely structured to DMT. And so it's like a lock and key fit to your neurotransmitter, your neuroreceptor sites,
And what does that prove?
That's the whole reason why I think they no longer, they're not waiting for Carmelite nuns to enter this state. They now realize they can induce it with psychedelics. And even though you have the potential to probably do this naturally by yourself, you're not going to have the patience to sit in the ashram for 30 plus years before you finally glimpse it, where they can induce it in a single session with a high dose of one of these substances.
Yeah, so what I want, I'm going to go buy that drug.
Well, I'm not, if that's the case, man, I have something to sell for you now.
Let's not. No, let's not.
I mean, it sounds to me like
that's not what I meant. But
tell you what, let's actually.
That's just evidence that drugs, i.e., chemicals, do certain things in your brain, and that's all that's evidence of.
Mm-hmm. So far, yeah.
that's the end of that.
Well, that was my initial assumption about all this until I got into this rabbit hole of actually, looking into the research. And the neuroscientists that study this, they don't really see the chemical, like it's not like something drug, like it's not weird brain experiences that drugs happen to have an effect on your brain. They see it as something that's intrinsic to your consciousness. That mystical experience is like a biologically normal phenomenon.
Because consciousness is necessarily a result of your brain chemistry.
You see, that's another assumption out of
you cannot have consciousness without a nervous system.
Can you find me a peer-reviewed paper that establishes that?
I can't right now, but
no, you won't be able to at all. It doesn't exist, is what I'm trying to get at.
I think an entry-level biology class will tell you otherwise.
So to cut to the end of this. So Turner, let's say tomorrow you woke up in the morning and you said, hey, you know what? I was wrong about all of this. The brain is just what we need for consciousness. There's no stream of consciousness being broadcast into us. There's no mystical realm. There's no none of this. Like everything you just mentioned tonight, you woke up tomorrow and you realize, hey, this is all false. I got two questions for you. Okay. One is, how would you come to that conclusion? Mainly, I'm asking about falsifiability. What criteria do you have to falsify these claims? And then the second question is, how would you feel if you were to come to that realization?
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily. I think that's kind of a loaded question in that I don't see it as like this is not the realm of Mortal Kombat. Like I'm not like I don't think it's. I don't even think the professionals are saying that this is like some special spiritual realm that you're tapping into. What people perceive when they have these states.
So wait, hold on. You just said that the professionals are saying that this is not a spiritual realm you're tapping into. This is something you're saying.
Well, no, I mean it's not spiritual in the sense of like it's the realm of like Mortal Kombat. Like in other words, what they're saying.
I think you're misinterpreting me. Let me try to ask this again. Let me actually ask a more basic question. Do you think it's important for us to know how we would be wrong about our positions?
Sure.
Okay. That comes to falsifiability. I think it's important for just about anything we accept. We have some criteria to determine if we're wrong about that. Because if we don't, we have no escape hatch out of a false belief.
I agree.
Okay. So for your belief about everything you espoused tonight, what's your escape hatch? What is your criteria to determine whether this is false or not?
Well, the reason I really don't associate it with falsity is because, what it is essentially is a vision inside a phenomenon in consciousness that fuses reality, that you see things as all as one. Like
I gotta stop you.
No. I think that you're not answering the question.
Yeah, you're missing my question.
That's not an answer to the question.
So I can make a bunch of claims. Okay, I think that tomorrow the sun will come up in the morning. I think that day to day reality presents itself in the same way it presented to us yesterday. I can make all kinds of beliefs and claims, and for every one of them, I can say, if I'm wrong about this, this is how I would know. If I'm wrong about being the son of my mother Pamela, there should be a way for me to know, and that would be DNA tests, that would be birth certificates, that would be anything to show me that I'm wrong about my belief.
Son? Your father is not your father.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm asking you, Turner. You presented a lot of claims tonight, but in general, how would you know you were wrong about this?
Let me phrase it differently then. Let's say you, Eric, you were vouchsafed a glimpse into a state of mind in which you saw a complete unity amongst reality, a complete infinite love for your, all of existence, all creatures, all your brothers and sisters. And so now you're left with thinking, okay, is this false? and the reason I don't think it's necessarily false is because they've been able to map it over time and again.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
that
Trevor.
was not the question
I'm asking for falsification criteria, and you're jumping towards confirmation. So this can be a new way to look at it, but
sure. But okay, but
I'm not saying.
I would like to give you an example. One of the questions that Eric gave you. Let's say I'm an atheist, correct? And I have been an atheist for a few years now. Let's say that tomorrow I realize that I was wrong. For me, if that's something that I'm able to accept and I won't feel bad about it, I just say, okay, I was wrong. But in your case, if tomorrow you find evidence that all of them that you explained to us is wrong, what will be the feeling that you will have regarding that? Can you accept it like that or not?
Yeah, I see. Okay, so you see, if something is false and it can be verified as false, then for me, it would be that these mystical experiences don't line up, that they would be unique to the individual. And, you couldn't come to any concrete universal truth whatsoever amongst all the reported cases.
So we got two examples. We got two examples in our chat right here of mystical experiences, mystical, which wasn't attributed to anything supernatural. We have two cases right here.
Yeah, but were they, were they digested by the professionals? Did they meet how did they relate to the criteria?
So far, your professional evidence, though, like the PowerPoint slide you showed us and those diagrams, and then comparing that to historical accounts from quote unquote mystics, that's not a scientific approach to it. Like I don't see. You're saying, you're trying to dismiss the two conflicting samples in front of you because they don't meet this criteria that you were putting forward.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that someone that says they maintain their atheism after this, in what sense?
Can this be?
What?
Sorry.
I don't think that you didn't hear what I said, because like I said, if tomorrow God appears, I would just believe it, and I will not be bothered by that. I would just say I was wrong.
But what do you mean by
God appears? That's what I was trying to make you see that. Personally, you, how would you feel if everything that you said today and every claim that you just did, you realize that it was wrong to you, not to the professionals, not to the experiences, to you?
That's how. The whole point of my passion is studying the neuroscience. Like, if it all was unaligned and it was logically incoherent, then I would say this obviously makes no sense. But that's not the case, And like you're trying to say, like, okay, how do we falsify it? You have to assume that it could be falsified in the first place.
So do you understand that in science, every single scientific claim must have at least one falsification criterion attached to it, or else it's not science? Yeah. So is this science you're presenting us?
Well, I think it's science in the sense that they are studying, these professionals are studying mind states. They are comparing them to, what people have experienced throughout history.
It's doctors and papers and according to the images, if your images are to be believed, brain scans.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's science. Empirical in that sense.
Okay. So science. So if there's a scientific claim in here, what's the falsification criterion for it? What is the claim and what's the falsification criterion?
I think that would be it. That if everyone had a unique phenomenon occur and there was no alignment amongst these so-called mystical experiences, but that's why I say I don't think that's the case. I think when they examine this and they push, these criterion forward, you see that seems more like a universal phenomenon in consciousness that we all have the potential experience, even your dear self. It may be the case that you haven't had it.
Proper falsification.
Yeah.
Technique.
I heard no falsification criterion in there at all for that.
I'm not a scientist, so
but
it still screams that.
So theory of gravity, right? Falsification criterion for theory of gravity. I will hold this pen, and when I release it, if it goes up, that falsifies the theory of gravity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's essentially what I'm saying by it's not.
Okay, so Eric, what can we do?
If I fill this balloon full of helium, then that disproves you.
Touche, my friend. But like that's the kind of that simple. I didn't have to dance around it. I didn't have to talk about confirmation. I talked about anything. I said theory of gravity. I release this pen and it floats up. That's my falsification criterion. Period. I didn't need a paragraph. I just needed one statement. What's the falsification criterion
to it that pulled it up?
Yeah. What's the falsification criterion for anything you told us tonight? Just give us one.
I mean, that would be it. To me, it would be that, it's not a universal phenomenon, that it's unique to the individual.
How would you go about to determine that, though? So I will grant you that in the slide you said it's a universal phenomenon. You said it's a universal phenomenon.
Yes.
What do you do to determine that it's not? What is the action?
If everyone is coming up with different stories and different takes on this phenomenon, obviously it's not aligned.
Other people are coming up with different stories and different takes. We have two right here, and we could probably have countless others that are not included in your. We have countless others that are not included in your paper.
Yeah, but you see, you're assuming that they've had it. Like, you do realize in the studies they use what Terence McKenna called a heroic dose. Have they had the heroic dose, or they were messing with recreational doses and going off that? How do we determine that? How do we determine that? And so
how do you determine? So that's the thing.
What is the heroic dose? And what does that mean?
We're gonna wrap this up and get back to memes here in a moment.
Sure.
Then.
Okay. No, fine. A heroic dose was put forth originally by Terence McKenna, and it's not a fixed dose. It goes by your own metabolism, your weight, and so forth.
Yeah. Different body sizes.
At minimum, it would be about 5 dry grams. And so, like, if you weigh more, you want to take a little bit more. So maybe 7 dry grams. If you're taking, raw mushrooms, if you're chewing on raw mushrooms, which is what they don't use in the studies, they use pure psilocybin.
Yes, we accept that. But so what is the general range?
About 5 dry grams.
5 dried grams of
5 dried grams
of
psilocybin mushrooms.
Psilocybin mushrooms.
So somebody takes 5 dried grams of psilocybin mushrooms. They will have this experience, and they will.
Well, according to these studies at Johns Hopkins, and you're welcome to look into them.
So we find one person who's done this, and they don't have this experience. That falsifies it.
What I'm trying to say is that they have a track record of about 70 to 80% of individuals who meet criteria for the so-called complete mystical experience.
So there's a sample of experiments that don't support.
Yeah. It's about 30% of individuals that don't get it.
All right. So how does this at all help us then? Because now you just weakened your case by saying that, because now you admitted that there are people who have followed the instructions, followed the step by step, and did not get the results that you're espousing as true.
Sure,
but now falsification is even harder because you're having the same test and getting different results.
Yeah, but you see, I'm not trying to be contrarian here. Like I find it interesting that they don't. And is it the case that maybe if they go higher, they would get a higher rate? I don't know. The studies haven't been done, but it's still interesting nonetheless. And I wouldn't dismiss it outright. Is what I'm trying to get at here. I'm just looking at the peer-reviewed material, and I'm reiterating it to the best of my ability. And, I'm not here to say like, oh, this is black and white. It must be this, it must be that way, so don't confuse it with that.
All right. And well, real quick, let's wrap this up. Final question, 2-sentence answer, please. If you woke up tomorrow and you realized that this was all bunk, how would you feel?
I mean, I would accept it. I'm more interested in truth over anything. So if that's the case, then I would accept it as so. I have no, I have no dog in this fight. I'm going by what these professionals are saying, and I'm trying to reiterate.
Can you name me one doctor? Sorry, there's an additional question. Can you name me one doctor who disagrees with the findings of the paper you just presented?
Dr. Rick Strassman.
Okay. And what does he say about it?
He doesn't really agree with Roland Griffith's work. He thinks I never understood why. I want to look into it. I would love to interview that guy, but
I
he did
probably. I think that's an excellent idea. Actually, I think you should talk to individuals who are doctors. They're experts in the field that can respond to all the stuff that you're saying.
Yes, and he did he was responsible for the spirit molecule. He did the studies in the mid-90s with DMT, which launched all these psychedelic studies. And the reason I mentioned the psychedelic renaissance, and I urge you to look up that term. It's a term that reflects the explosion in science of all the psychedelic studies being done around the world right now. We got studies in UK, IV drip of DMT being intravenously administered into your very vein. So as long as you can stand the DMT trip, you can, they're doing that right now. In Texas, they just opened up in Austin University a psilocybin study. I mean, it's exploding right now. And they call this explosion the psychedelic renaissance. So if you think I'm talking bunkness, look that term up and you'll find that there's studies going on everywhere right now.
All right. Well, I'll let you have the last word on that. So yeah, thanks for that. That's an extremely large tangent we went on away from the memes. That was a fun conversation though.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So anybody play Oblivion? Remember Oblivion? It's an Elder Scrolls game. It's the game that came before Skyrim. Anyone remember that? This is a meme from that. Stop there. Stop right there, criminal scum.
I'm not nerd enough to
Sorry, I'm a huge nerd.
I'm in the wrong place. I'm not nerd enough.
I have a ton of tabs open here. In fact, so many that I'm having a hard time getting through them. I like this one. This was a good one. I'm gonna go ahead and share this one.
Didn't you say you have like 9,000 images in this folder?
9,797.
That puts my ADHD YouTube channel folders to shame.
Yeah,
I thought my shit was.
I had a lot of spare time back when I deconverted. I think it was like my mid to late 20s, and I was deconverted. I didn't have to go to those stupid meetings anymore. Alma would understand. Jehovah's Witnesses meetings. Jehovah's Witnesses meeting back in the day, 3 nights a week, about 5 hours a week total for the meetings, plus field ministry and personal study, and it's just so many hours of your life taken up. So when I left, I had
every waking minute that you have available, it has to be dedicated to that.
Alma, are you XJW as well?
Yeah,
she is.
Yes.
Oh my God,
it's horrible. And you don't have a life. You really don't have a life.
Eric, as much as I've been watching you on the line, I actually forgot until tonight that you are XJW.
Yeah, I am.
I kind of had an idea of a few other people in the related realms that were XJW, and I just kind of forgot that you were also in that realm. And it doesn't have to be now, but I would love to talk with you to get more of an understanding about that.
Absolutely.
Because I have no idea about what that world is like, but
it's weird. It's weird and boring at the same time. So yeah.
Yes.
And oh my God, I'm so sorry.
That's exactly what I'm interested in. So
oh my God, I'm so sorry. Scarecrow, you've been in the back room for like a half hour now. I'm so sorry. Welcome.
Scarecrow.
Okay.
Oh shit, there's a scarecrow here.
I got my windows. My window's weird. Like there's 2 rows for the back room, and if you appear in the right spot, you're down below the window, and I can't see you. I have to like scroll down to see you. So anyway, so sorry about that.
Damn that scroll bar.
Yeah, that's stupid scroll bar. So what about this meme right here? So pick one and be ready to face the consequences if you choose wrong. So we got Jesus. We have Jesus. We have Zeus. We have this is probably
straight away.
I don't think my favorite god is in there.
Got Pikachu down here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Wrong choice you will make.
No, it's not there.
Pikachu can shock me all they want.
My favorite god is one that
all they want. Cool with
it's
that.
an Aztec god. Is with Chilopote.
Yeah. There's Yoda.
It's
There's a TARDIS. There's a TARDIS over there too. So this illustrates a really good point. This is like this really just this takes on Pascal's wager like head on, basically, when I look at this, because Pascal's wager starts with the massive assumption that the Christian God is the only option for God or not God. But when we really think about it, any God you choose can either be happy with your choice or not happy with your choice. Like I can fathom a God. I can fathom a God that wants you to either believe or not believe based on your own honest assessment of the available evidence. And even though that God exists, he might punish somebody for believing without good evidence. And he might reward somebody for not believing because of a lack of good evidence, which is kind of opposite from the Christians say, because the Christians are like, believe or burn. That's the only two options they have there. But I can fathom a God that is the opposite. I can fathom a God that says, you believe in me and you burn. You don't believe in me and you're saved.
That's like Pine Creek's God of the Atheists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
think I've heard that
there
one.
is something like that, Eric, with the wager of George Smith. And it says that like there is 4 options. And one, and there is no God, so believers and unbelievers are whatever.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Smith's wager.
Second, there is like a deistic God that doesn't care. So everybody's okay.
Yeah.
Third option is we have a God that is just. So it says, okay, you don't believe because you didn't find evidence, you're okay. And the last option is we have the God of the Bible, everybody's screwed.
Pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
Except for a select 144,000. Depending on which denomination you are.
Oh, those two are screwed too. Yeah.
If you look at the JW literature, the 144,000 are doomed to become white men with white beards and white hair in heaven. Like if you look at all their literature. So to kind of add some context, in the JW
Isn't that what
faith,
Candace Owens wants? So I mean,
maybe in the JW faith, there's two groups.
Surprise me.
There's 2 groups of humans who will be saved by God. One is called the Great Crowd, which is everybody who's going to inherit the earth and live forever on the earth. And then there's the little flock, or the 144,000. They're to ascend to heaven to become kings and priests alongside Christ Jesus during his 1,000-year millennial reign, which started in 1914. Anyway, if you look at all their literature, whenever they depict the 144,000 in heaven, they're all white guys with white beards and white hair. And the 144,000 includes women and people of all races and colors here on the earth. But for some reason in the literature, when they're in heaven, they're all just homogenous white people. It's so creepy.
Yeah.
You know, the whole thing about...
you know what is what's the criteria to be one of those?
It's the same exact criteria. I'm going to pick on you here a little bit, Turner. It's the same exact criteria that Turner has for the mystical experience. It is just God's spirit speaks inside of you, and you just know. And that's how they determine whether they are anointed or not. I got actually image right here. I did have an image right here.
It's so sad that the term for like the whiteness of things and characters throughout the Hebrew scriptures and the Christian Testament, this one actually here. Give me a second.
Sure.
The whiteness is more about the purity and the glow and the eminence of the person, but that doesn't get rid of any other defining features that they have. Right?
I don't know. These guys are pretty white.
All of them.
All right, well,
they're pretty Caucasian,
right? But
like a whitewash.
Yeah. But like,
no, go for it.
I wouldn't say that like that eliminates like defining features like the variances of skin tones, like the shapes of the faces and things like that. It's just honestly like who originally, it was an English-speaking person that started Jehovah's Witness, right?
Yeah, Charles Taze Russell.
Okay, yeah. So this is a person with no idea of, cultural context and perception and reception of these texts, or understanding that the concept of whiteness is just purity, not looking like you. Like, so,
I mean, Eric, also, there is an interesting take on hell within the Eastern Orthodox. I don't know if you've heard of it. They call it the Tabor Light. So according to the theologians of Eastern Orthodox, people who remain unreconciled, and I put it in the private chat, to the uncreated light, they're burned by it. But according to Polemus, our Theophanes of Nicaea, they believe that for sinners, the divine light will be perceived as the very punishing fires of hell. So, it's always the vision of God. But if you've lived a life of sin, it depends on your perception on your deathbed. So, that's one take on hell
that's an interesting take. I've never heard that one before. So basically, it's the same experience for everybody, except how you perceive it is different. It's a fancy way of painting it. Yeah.
Orthodox makes me so mad, but I don't want to talk about that.
Those Orthodoxes. There you go. This was an actual image that was used by Ray Comfort, I think.
The crocoduck.
Yeah, the crocoduck.
And Potholer did a whole video series about the Crocoduck Award. Do you know who Potholer 56 is? I think it's Potholer 56. Hold on. Give me a second.
Potholer 56.
54. 54. Oh, 54. Potholer 54.
How could you get that wrong, Nitty?
But yeah, all these videos about like the Crocoduck Award and pseudoscience and shit like that. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Is it like the Darwin Awards?
I think I never laughed so hard as when Ray Comfort says, "Oh, the banana is the nightmare for the atheist."
Yeah, the atheist nightmare.
What?
That will never go down. That'll never that'll always be a classic.
I stopped eating bananas because of that now.
Okay, I'm looking for more. I'm deep inside this folder now. My scroll bar is halfway down the window.
All right, guys, it's time.
Yeah,
it's time to stop a bunch of kidding around. Let me hold this microphone right up to your mouth.
The atheist nightmare.
But yeah, Potholer's good stuff. If you're not subbed to Potholer 54, you should be.
Okay. All right. I'm looking for something else. There's a lot of other like non-religious related stuff in here too.
And he debunks flat earth stuff too. He's like Professor Dave before Professor Dave.
Nice.
Oh, I remember then when one of the groups of flat earthers tried to set up a gyroscope to prove that the earth wasn't moving.
Oh,
and the gyroscope was pretty accurate. And they didn't like that, so they tried to mess with it so it would show what they wanted.
Does anybody remember I forgot what state and what governor it was, but they were praying for rain to take care of some fires, and the hurricane hit instead and brought floods. Like, do you remember anything? It's like within the last few years. It's probably Texas or Florida or something like that where they do that stuff.
It has to be something like that.
Yeah, it's messed up.
I remember that when there was a hurricane in Florida, there was this woman who was trying to blow it away with a staff or something. Which one it is? I think it's Cat Kerr.
I rebuke you, hurricane. Yeah, that was Cat Kerr.
From the governor's office, said like, let's pray for rain.
I remember that. Oh yeah, Cat Kerr. Yeah. And they got more than they bargained for because it was like a flood came or more fire came or something like that. Yeah, this happened like lots of times where individuals will pray for a certain thing to happen and they get like either the opposite or way too much what they asked for. individuals who say that, like, God sends hurricanes or tornadoes because certain states allow homosexuality, and then their house gets destroyed by a tornado, by a hurricane.
Yeah.
I like how you reduced it to Texas and Florida, man. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's two safe choices. Any of those southern states down there.
I put one for you in the private chat, man. I really like this one. I don't know who the fuck created it, but you might have seen it before. It's I guess it's a dog on the so-called theist definition of atheism, and it's like he's arguing all gods are imaginary. It's like, so you're saying gods don't exist? He says, no, I'm not claiming gods don't exist. And so you're saying there might be a God? He's like, no, all gods are imaginary. I don't know, man. It seems like the contention that goes on between that.
Well, I think this comes down to just a difference in terms. But I mean, obviously, what's the father's name in this? I forget this is OC Choppers, right? Orange County Choppers. But he's contradicting himself. Yeah, he's contradicting himself on the first frame and second frame. He's making a positive claim, and then he's saying, I'm not making a claim. So he's contradicting himself right there.
Yeah.
So I mean, there might be individuals who think like this, but this is not, I think, anybody that I know.
Oh no, definitely. Yeah. I come across it often. Like they hide behind, like this burden of proof, that the theism burden of proof, but at the same time, in the same breath, they'll say like God's imaginary, God's non-existent, God's fairy tale. Like.
In cases like that, it would probably be best to say, are you being absolutely literal with that statement? Because I'm sensing a contradiction.
Yeah. Oh, no. There's no even trying to make sense with them at that point. Like,
well, you can. I mean, you just got to ask them. Like, okay, maybe are you being hyperbolic? Are you getting caught up in the moment?
You can try, man. But I mean, like, I really think it they really see the burden of proof as something like they hide behind it as though it's like some invincibility. Like it's a state of invincibility from the burden of proof. So they can make all these derogatory terms from that podium, and while still maintaining that they have no burden of proof. Like, I don't know. It's just a trolling tactic, I guess. It's the ultimate ideal gauntlet of the troll. But no, I agree with you. If they're really honest,
if somebody's conducting a conversation like we saw in that meme, then I would say yes.
If they're really honest, then they wouldn't adhere to those paradoxes. Yeah, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
So any Star Trek Next Generation fans here? Like,
oh hell yeah,
yeah. Okay, so there's a great episode called "Who Watches the Watchers," and it's an episode where basically, like, the Federation, humans, they have spaceships, they have technology, they're visiting worlds across the galaxy. And there's going to be worlds they visit where the people of those worlds have not advanced in technology yet to the point where they can, like, fully handle first contact with an alien species. Anyway, there's an episode where they come into contact with this primitive race of people and accidentally basically contaminate their culture. They notice that they basically actually revealed themselves to these people, and these people immediately started trying to make sense of what they were experiencing. So they started formulating beliefs about this, jumping to conclusions. Like they saw Picard in one thing, and they started making stories about Picard, how he's the Picard, he's in charge, basically like making him into like a god in their eyes. Anyway, it's an excellent episode. It's really, really great. But near the end of the episode, two interesting things happen. One is Picard ignores the highest rule of the Federation in order to correct this from becoming any worse. The prime directive in Star Trek is basically don't interfere at all in any alien civilizations. That's not the place of humans to do that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, due to an accident, interference had already occurred. So he discarded the rule temporarily in order to do his best to correct the action. And the way he did that was he basically almost gave his life to demonstrate that he's immortal, he's not a god, and all that. It's an excellent episode. Go watch it. It's amazing.
Man, that's cool. That sounds like a Twilight Zone episode. Yeah.
It is. It's called, Who Watches the Watchers? You can just jump right into the episode and just watch it.
No, that sounds
It's
badass.
really, really good. And this goes back to like when I left the Witnesses, it was kind of a joke back then, but I reflect on it now, and I'm like, yeah, actually, it's maybe a little bit more than a joke. The joke was, who needs Jesus? I have Captain Picard. And it's not really like, you don't look at this fictional TV character as a savior or anything like that, but as a example of someone with good moral character, someone who analyzes the world around him. He uses logic and compassion, and he has a good set of morals. Basically, like he's a fictional TV character, but the episodes that I watched him in and watched how he grappled problems opened up new dialogues and new ways of thinking for me, where I go, oh, interesting. If I was in that situation, how would I behave? Would I do what he did here? All that. And so anyway, long story short, Captain Picard is far more of a role model to me than Jesus ever could be at this point, because I've seen so much more deeper discussion and thought come out of just a TV show, a well-written TV show, than out of a 2,000-year holy book.
No, I would agree. Science does have a way of explaining things to a T that, religion couldn't even touch. And, what's the other one, man? Picard. Supposedly, religion is supposed to address spiritual matters, but, like a lot of people, I think even if you gave the spiritual dimension to science, then you would still have a better explanation.
Jakan Nadar is asking, what is your opinion on Strange New Worlds? I've only watched season 1 and I do like it. I think it's probably the best of the new Treks that have come out. Yeah, by far. I think it's much more. It's the most closest in alignment with the way I think Trek should be. Didn't like Discovery, and I didn't like. I think
you don't watch Doctor Who.
My wife does, but I've actually never watched Doctor Who.
Right.
The little bit of Doctor Who I've watched, I didn't get into.
Man, right. I can push a few episodes that I think would launch you into it. I actually started watching Doctor Who with my wife too, so she's the one that got me into it.
Oh yeah. My wife's tried a couple times. I should probably ask her, like, what's a Doctor Who episode that you think would like hook me?
Man, I'll send you some. I'll send you some.
Yeah. I put it on par with DS9. Yeah, DS9 is probably some of the best Trek out there ever. Strange New Worlds, DS9 are the top 2 Treks. Yeah, I agree.
You don't like Jim Bob's memes? I'm pretty sure you don't.
Oh man! Don't get me started.
The only one that I liked was the guy. He's wearing like that atheist logo on his shirt, and the girl, she's on her phone casually. She's like, "I like your gay pride T-shirt." Like, it has nothing to do with gay pride. She's just like assumed that it was associated, but I don't know. That was the only one I thought was funny.
I do not find that funny at all.
Oh, okay. All right.
It kind of pissed me off just now, actually.
Oh my god. All right. Never mind.
Well, anyway, I need some sleep, and on that note, not a great one, but I'll see you guys
lucid
later.
Dreams, Nitty. Lucid dreams.
All right, Nitty.
Boy. Later.
You have a good night.
Mm-hmm.
Stay away from the psilocybin and the ayahuasca powder.
Lucid dreams doesn't exactly sound like the best night's sleep, but
yeah,
it sounds like a fun night's sleep.
It is fun, but it is very tiresome.
Yeah. All right, we got maybe 2 or 3 more to look at, maybe, and then we're gonna call it an evening.
Yeah, that was my sleep paralysis, like this.
I was about
this meme exactly.
Yeah, sleep paralysis isn't considered a mental illness, though. If you just ignore the mental illness part, it totally applies to sleep paralysis, I would imagine. It's like, oh, hey, what's up?
Yeah, that's now like, oh yeah. Again.
I saw it and I immediately thought of you, Alma. I was like, yeah, this is pretty apt.
Hey, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
It's like my old friend.
I acknowledge that you're here. You're here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
this is also kind of why I originally joined.
All right, I'm going to make a goal, find 2 more. I actually have to scroll back up. I scrolled all the way down to the bottom, so I can go back up. Oh, what's this? This one has a none in it. Is it appropriate? Here's the thing. I have to look at each one before I show it, because I have 10,000 images 15 years ago. I don't know what's in this folder. So very, very, very careful.
Man, not everything 15 years ago is appropriate today.
You got to upload them to Instagram account, and I bet you're making tens of thousands of dollars just based on those uploads alone.
Just a historical archive of old
names.
Hell
yeah.
Sister, if God knows what we're all thinking, then why to go to confession? Good question, Billy. You see, confession refines our sense of guilt and shame, or reinforces our senses of guilt and shame, which is integral to the Catholic faith. Plus, all the priests really get off on it.
More ways than one.
Yeah.
Well, I know
that got dark really quick.
You know that I used to go to a Catholic school when for elementary, like for grade 1 to 4. Was awful. The big nuns.
Yeah, I never went to a religious school or anything like that. I was always just public school, so I think I was probably spared a lot of that. Terribleness.
George Carlin has whole skits on, his introduction to, elementary religious schools.
Yeah. In fact, I have a George Carlin meme right here. I saw a couple of them. This one's just people in general, but it's still a good one. Not necessarily towards religion, but people in general.
Oh yeah. This is
think of how stupid the average person is, and realize that half of them are stupider than that.
Yeah, this is the one that he was talking about.
This is just the basic statistics.
It is, but it's just so well put. It's like everybody thinks that they're at least average. Lots of people think they're above average, but probably most people think that like I'm average.
Are below that.
Really, half of them are not. They're below the average.
I mean, what is that show where people fight? I forgot. It's not Jerry. I forgot the name of the show, but I think that's what he was basing it on. It's like the Springer, Jerry Springer. He's like, the Jerry Springer show. Oh. Like those are that's the average person, and realize that that half of them are stupider than that, and they all vote, and yeah, he ended up like that.
All right, and I'm gonna show something now that if it fuels your sleep paralysis, I'm sorry, your night terrors and all that, but here you go.
Yeah.
Oh, he's my favorite.
His
At least we can tell it can make from the beginning.
I love Conan.
Oh, yeah.
I love Conan so much.
Yeah, he's badass.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for hanging out and joining me. This was completely just off the cuff and just hanging out, decompressing. My dog's looking at me like, why have you been sitting in the front of that computer all day? I'm going to go play with him a little bit. So thanks everyone, Salty, Turner, Scarecrow, and Alma, and also everyone who else, Nitty and Stephanie, who were here earlier. Thank you so much. And thanks folks. Catch you later. Catch me on the line coming up this Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. I'll be joining Jimmy and hopefully take more DS callers and having some fun.
That's the After Dark show, isn't it?
It's the After Dark show, yeah. Tonight's show was kind of out of the blue.
Very dark.
Yeah. I'm not much of a political commentator, so I didn't have much to say when we were talking about the speech and stuff like that. But tonight was also the line appearance was completely out of the blue. So basically was there to do Matt a favor in case he wasn't able to make it. So, but anyway, cool. Thanks everyone. Catch you later.
Hey, you're awesome, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pop up the thing. The cat's on the table now, and I'm going to do this, and later.
Oh, you cut it off right when the cat jumped on the